All right, find the exact value of each expression or state that the value is undefined. So let's go through that. A few pieces of information we want to kind of prep ourselves with is first off, remembering what special right triangles we have. And so let me sketch those out. And we have our 30, 60, 90 right triangle, or to keep it in terms of radians, it would be a pi over 3, or 1/3 of pi as your 60 degrees, pi over 6, or 1/6 of pi for your 30 degrees. And these pieces are going to be, if this is our radius of 1, then over here we have 1/2, and over here we have the square root of 3 divided by 2. So remember, we're cutting it in half as we go from the hypotenuse to the short leg, and then from the short leg to the long leg, multiplying by the square, or yeah, the square root of 3. And if you had just left these all as 1x, 1/2 of x, and x times the square root of 3 divided by 2, that's fine, because as we set up these ratios, those x's cancel out, so it really doesn't make a difference how long the radius of the circle is. Though we typically do just leave it as 1, and just as a kind of a convention, just making it a little bit easier on ourselves. You also have your 45, 45, 90 right triangle. And so 45 degrees, 45 degrees, and your right angle. And this one, in terms of radians, would be pi over 4, or 1/4 of pi. 1/4 of pi. All right, and with this one, our side lengths are going to be, if our radius is 1, this is going to be the square root of 2 over 2, and the square root of 2 over 2. So there we are, and those are our pieces we're going to need as we work our way through. And all right, we'll just need to figure out our reference angle. Once we have our reference angle, we can figure out all the rest of these pieces. All right, so cosine of 120 degrees. So cosine, let's kind of sketch that out real fast. Cosine of 120 degrees is going to be in quadrant 2. And in quadrant 2, only sine is positive. So this better end up being negative there in quadrant 2. Our reference angle, so if this is 120 degrees, our reference angle that we'll be using is the 60 degrees. That's kind of small. Now that's 60 degrees though. So we're really doing, our reference angle is, our reference angle, alpha, is equal to 60 degrees. Let's write that a little bit bigger. So come on over to our triangles here. And so if 60 degrees, and we're looking for cosine, that's going to be the adjacent, so 1/2. 1/2, and really if you're thinking about it in terms of the context here, that's going to be negative 1/2. So negative 1/2 divided by the hypotenuse, so adjacent divided by hypotenuse, so over 1, and that simplifies down to negative 1/2. There we are, the cosine of 120 degrees. Let me jump down to E. I think E is going to be another good example for you, and then kind of cut you loose to work through the rest of these on your own. So E, we've got the cosecant of pi over 3. And so cosecant, that's going to be equal to the hypotenuse over the opposite side. Because where cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And so we got 1 over that, or divided by that, giving us the reciprocal of the hypotenuse divided by the opposite side. All right, and that is at pi over 3, and so that's in our that's in quadrant 1, and pi over 3 is both our theta and our reference angle. So where do we have pi over 3? And so pi over 3 right here is, that's our same thing as 60 degrees. our cosecant, hypotenuse, that's going to be 1 over the opposite side, so 1 over root 3 divided by 2. And we're going to multiply that by the reciprocal, so kind of multiplying both the top and the bottom here by 2 over the square root of 3, 2 over the square root of 3. These all cancel out down here, and we end up with is equal to 2 over the square root of 3. But we want to rationalize our denominator, so multiplying both the top and the bottom by root 3, and we get 2 root 3 over 3. This is in the first quadrant, so this is positive, and there's our answer. We have the cosecant of 1/3 pi. All right, so go ahead and pause the video here, try the rest of these, and see how you do. Just kind of sketch out your pieces, go through step by step, figure out what we need to know. Remember your ratios, and use your special right triangles right over here. So, hope that helped. All right, so hope you did pause and tried these on your own, and let's go through them now. So, secant of 225 degrees, we're going to have that as 225 degrees is going to be over in quadrant 3. And our reference angle here, 225 minus 180, leaving us with 45 degrees. Our reference angle here is 45 degrees. So knowing that alpha rather, is 45 degrees, alpha equals 45 degrees, and we're in quadrant 3. So in quadrant 3, tangent is positive. Or I guess we're dealing with secant, so let's just write it as secant being negative. Secant is negative, not -1, just negative. And here we go. So our triangle that we'll be setting up, remember our reference angle is 45 degrees. And so from 45 degrees, our secant, which is going to be the reciprocal of cosine, is going to be our hypotenuse, 1. So hypotenuse of 1 divided by the adjacent side, which is going to be root 2 over 2. Remember, this is going to be going negative, so negative root 2 over 2. Simplify that out, and we get, so multiply by the, instead of dividing by negative root 2 over 2, let's multiply by 2 over the square root of 2, and we end up getting that this is equal to negative 2 over the square root of 2. Rationalize your denominator, multiply the top and the bottom both by the square root of 2, and we end up with, what is that? 2 root 2 over 2, and 2 divided by 2. That's 1, and so we end up actually just with negative, I dropped my negative over here, negative square root of 2 as our answer. Negative square root of 2. All right, sine of pi over 2. Well, actually, this is one of the ones we should be very quick on. That's 1/2 of pi. That's right up to here. And our sine value at that point is +1. All right, tangent, switch back over to the blue. So tangent of 3/4 pi. So if we're sketching this out, it's past 1/2 pi, and then another 1/4 pi around, or 1/4 pi around. And so we end up with a reference angle of 1/4 pi. Now remember, this is in quadrant 2, and so tangent here will be negative. In quadrant 2, tangent will be negative. Our reference angle, our alpha, is going to be 1/4 pi, or pi over 4. Thinking of our special right triangles, here we are. So tangent, that's going to be the opposite. So root 2 over 2 divided by the adjacent. Now that's going to be kind of in context of our problem. That's to the left of the origin. So that's going to be negative root 2 over 2. Simplify that out, and we get anything divided by itself is 1, but it's divided by a negative self, and so we end up with -1 as our answer there. -1. Secant of pi, and so let's see, pi, or secant rather, is 1 over the cosine, and so let's sketch that out. Here we are at pi, where what is our cosine at that point, where the cosine is -1. So what's 1 over -1? Well, that simplifies down to -1. Again, 1 because it's a reciprocal. Secant is 1 over cosine, and cosine of pi is -1. Simplify that out, we get -1. All right, the cotangent of 3/2 pi. Cotangent of 3/2 pi. So sketching that out, we're around to right here. Cotangent is going to be 1 over the tangent, and tangent itself is sine over cosine. And this is 1 over sine over cosine, so we're really finding the cosine divided by the sine. So here at 3/2 pi, cosine is going to be 0. It's not left or right at all. And sine is going to be -1. 0 divided by -1 is just 0. Now notice if we had asked, and this is just kind of separate piece, what if we had asked for the tangent of 3/2 pi, or 3 pi over 2? Right here we would have gone all the way around. We would have had sine over cosine. Sine would have been -1, and cosine would have been 0. This would have given us undefined had we had the tangent of 3 pi over 2, or 3/2 pi. All right, last one. Here we've got a negative angle measure, so we're going to be going clockwise instead of counterclockwise. Sketching that up, we are going to go into, let's see, into quadrant 3. Kind of a funny angle there, sorry about that. Our reference angle, well, how much farther would we have to go to get to 2 pi? And so our reference angle here is going to be 1/3 pi. And so alpha is going to be 1/3 pi, or pi over 3. Pi over 3. And which triangle is going to use pi over 3? Well, there we go. Pi over 3. And we're doing the secant. Remember, secant is 1 over the cosine. And here in quadrant 3, cosine is going to be negative, so secant is negative. All right, and then secant being the hypotenuse divided by the adjacent side, or cosine's adjacent over hypotenuse. Secant is the reciprocal of that, and so our hypotenuse there is 1, and our adjacent side is going to be 1/2. And remember, in context here, this is to the left of the ordinate, so this is -1/2, which makes sense because secant is going to be negative. And what's 1 divided by 1/2? Well, that is going to give us, or 1 divided by -1/2 is going to give us -2. All right, I hope that helps.